Chapter 4. Science, Technology and Society. Politics of Science and Technology. Learning objectives. Describe the role of science and technology in politics. Explain the global politics of science and technology. Discuss about impact of science on global politics. Discuss about impact of technology and science on international relations. Explain the special issue in communication, technology, and political conflict. Understand the social media in politics. Focus on pros and cons of technology. Role of science and technology in politics. Science and technology are key drivers to development, because technological and scientific revolutions underpin economic advances, improvements in health systems, education and infrastructure. The technological revolutions of the 21st century are emerging from entirely new sectors, based on microprocessors, telecommunications, biotechnology and nanotechnology. Products are transforming business practices across the economy, as well as the lives of all who have access to their effects. The most remarkable breakthroughs will come from the interaction of insights and applications arising when these technologies converge. Role of science and technology in politics. To promote technological advances, developing countries should invest in quality education for youth, continuous skills training for workers and managers, and should ensure that knowledge is shared as widely as possible across society. Successful countries have grown their ability to innovate and learn by doing, by investing public funding to help finance research and development in critical areas. Everyone is involved, big and small, public and private, rich and poor. Relationship between political science and politics. There is no real difference between political science and politics. Political science studies politics, i.e. all political relations and interactions in society. Hence it can't be called politics. Modern political scientists do not make a distinction between the two. They reject the traditional view which makes a distinction between these two. Traditional view. Difference between political science politics. The traditional scholars made a distinction between the discipline of political science, which studies state and government, and politics stands for current problems and issues being faced by the government. Scholars suggest a distinction between theoretical politics, political science, and applied politics, politics. The former is described as the theory of state and government and the latter as the practice of state and government. Points. Difference between political science politics. Politics means the issues, problems and political activities which are actually taking place in society. Against it, political science is a social science which studies the state and government. Politics is concerned with the day-to-day actual activities of the government. Political science seeks to study the origin, nature, and functions of the state, government and its all organs. Politics differs from state to state and within a state from time to time. The principles of political science are universal. Politics in India and Britain is different, but the theory of political science is the same in both the countries. Whereas each one of us is involved in politics, either directly or indirectly, political science is studied only by the students of this social discipline. Modern view. No difference between politics, political science. In contemporary times, all political scientists believe that there is no real difference between politics and political science. Political science studies politics and hence can be called politics. State and government are the two main institutions of political life of man. These are the main objects of study in politics. The terms politics and political science are synonyms. Politics or political science means the study of all political relations and interactions. Political relations and interactions are those which are involved in the exercise of power in society. Modern political scientists do not accept any distinction between politics and political science. They hold that politics is an appropriate name for describing the study of state, government, political relations and political processes. The global politics of science and technology. Global politics names both the discipline that studies the political and economic patterns of the world and the field that is being studied. The global politics of science and technology. Having this in mind, the present two volumes explore the politics of science and technology from a variety of perspectives ranging from classic themes such as nuclear weapons to recent debates about nanotechnology, drones, peak oil, cyberspace, supercomputers and biomedical technologies. The collection pursues two central aims. First, it documents the breadth and depth of research about the global politics of science and technology. The impact of technology on politics. The continued growth of technology has had a significant impact on the political ratings that candidates achieve. The article Impact of Technology on Politics attempts to analyze how these two spheres of modern life, technology and politics, interrelate and what the outcomes are of this interrelationship. One of the ways in which technology influences politics is the financial side. Raising funds to use for campaigning is an important factor for political candidates. It comes with the need to create a vertical response to the whole country or target region. This is a major hurdle experienced by political candidates. The impact of technology on political communication. The impact of technology on political communication is not a new phenomenon. Obama, like Jack Kennedy before him, managed to master a new technology before any other politician. FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, set the pattern when he learned to use the radio to communicate directly with the public during his fireside chats throughout the Depression and World War II. The impact of technology on political communication. The technological innovation system is a concept developed within the scientific field of innovation studies which serves to explain the nature and rate of technological change. The transformative power of the mass media has changed governance and made it more difficult for the state to wall off the outside world. Impact of science on global politics. The contentious relationship between science and global politics. Two pertinent issues, global warming and its effects and the use of embryonic stem cells for research, will be profiled. These stem cells come from embryos that are 3 to 5 days old. At this stage, an embryo is called a blastocyst and has about 150 cells. These are pluripotent stem cells, meaning they can divide into more stem cells or can become any type of cell in the body. Science's impact on global politics. Science, politics, and technology have a complex relationship that is exacerbated by the relationship between politicians and the people they represent. While scientific cases such as global warming and embryonic stem cell research are intended to warn against future global issues and seek solutions to issues that have afflicted humans for generations, the topics can be controversial and politically contentious. Global warming. Global warming refers to the gradual increase in the world's temperatures and its potential consequences such as drought, rising sea levels, and displaced populations. As the century progressed and the new millennium began, scientists all over the world noticed a disturbing increase in temperatures and the already apparent consequences, like melting ice sheets. Once many scientists became convinced that global warming was not only real but a long-term threat to humans, politicians and the public began to pay more attention. Global warming is the long-term heating of Earth's climate system observed since the pre-industrial period between 1850 and 1900 due to human activities, primarily fossil fuel burning, which increases heat trapping greenhouse gas levels in Earth's atmosphere. Impact of technology and science on international relations. Science, technology and international affairs influence one another. The impacts of science and technology on international affairs, particularly those of communication and information technologies, are especially penetrating. The interactive effects of science, technology and international affairs are so crucial and extensive that the area needs to be identified as an autonomous sub-control. International relations (IR) or international affairs, depending on academic institution, is either a field of political science, an interdisciplinary academic field similar to global studies, or an entirely independent academic discipline in which students take a variety of internationally focused courses in social science and humanities disciplines. Relationship between science, technology and international relations. The relationship between international relations and science and technology is not only a result of recent advances in science and technology, though the breadth of interaction and the rapidity of change are relatively modern characteristics. The historical examples are countless, ranging from weapons developments that altered the fate of nations and social structures, to industrial technologies that were the basis of revolutions in economy and wealth, to new capabilities in science and technology themselves that led to astonishing discoveries and applications. Technical aspects of international relations, the subjects with international consequences that have been massively affected by technological change in recent years are familiar: weapons, communications. The economy, transportation, agriculture, health, space, and others. Few, if any, aspects of international affairs have been untouched by science and technology. The effects of the application of technology are so widespread, in fact, and often of such obvious importance in the conduct and evolution of relations among nations, that it is routine for commentators to lapse into florid rhetoric in describing the resulting dramatic change in the international political system. Theories of international relations. Curiously, though there have been innumerable policy studies dealing with the effects of technological change in specific policy areas and a small number of works that attempt to look across the board at important policy areas, the subject is largely unexplored from the deeper perspective of the overall effects of science and technology on the evolution of international affairs. It is curious because of the evident centrality of the relationship, whether or not there is agreement on its ultimate significance. Methodology. As this project is mainly towards the qualitative research work and which extracts the information analysis from ground level. In this project data analysis point of view, primary data collection is considered where it is with the metric point, and literature survey is considered towards the qualitative research part. The primary purpose is not to produce a definitive or quantitative measure of system change. The task would be difficult and the result ultimately arbitrary. Rather, we will explore the nature of the interactions between technological and social factors that lead to evolutionary change, identify the direction and patterns of that change, and record its characteristics. Our focus, accordingly, will be on the patterns of evolution of important elements of international relations as a result of the impact with science and technology. We will consider change in system characteristics or concepts to constitute a definitive transformation only when it is ambiguous. Analysis. The complete project is mainly concerned about the international relations with respect to the technology and science. Nowadays, completely world relayed on globalization issues where technology plays vital role in all the fields of development as well as service-oriented industries. According to the aim of this project proposal, it must be focused on technology-relevant domains as well as current positions with respect to the fields of operations. How technology shapes relations among nations. Great power politics is very dynamic. But what are the dynamics of great power politics? Technology, in fact, is one of the key determinants in shaping relations among nations, alongside wars and economic shifts. It remains the key tool for promoting economic development and national security. Special issue in communication, technology, and political conflict. There are different pathways through which this can happen. Technology can facilitate collective action, but at the same time give governments the opportunity to censor content and gather intelligence about dissidents. Also, audience effects can be introduced by the rich and instant transmission of information from conflict regions. The contributions to this special issue can be divided into three groups. Effects. Why should ICT matter for conflict? Equipped with a basic understanding of the technical changes introduced by modern ICT, we can now turn to its social and political consequences, in particular those related to political conflict. As we will see below and in the remainder of this special issue, these are recurrent themes in the literature on ICT and conflict. Collective action. One of the most frequently mentioned ways that ICT is linked to political violence is through its effects on collective action. Typically, it is argued that the increased availability of information fosters mobilization of people, and gives existing rebel forces better means for coordination. Censoring this can have effects on conflict motives. Citizens that are exposed to unfiltered information from abroad may become aware of their own situation and more critical of the regime. Intelligence information flows in digital networks, however, may also provide new opportunities for intelligence gathering. Recent revelations about the sophisticated monitoring capabilities. Audience effect. Digital communication can convey much richer accounts of events on the ground, as for example the gruesome material on violence in the Syria conflict. Therefore, conflict parties have to be increasingly aware of the repercussions certain actions can have elsewhere. With little control over what information about a conflict is reported, pictures and videos of violence can quickly go viral, possibly. Contributions to the special issue. The first part of the special issue examines mechanisms that are frequently mentioned in conjunction with the debate around the new media, but apply equally to the old ones. Using a natural experiment, they analyze how TV coverage affected the decision of people to join the protests in East Germany in the weeks leading up to the collapse of the regime. The second part of the special issue includes the majority of articles, and looks specifically at the effects of new technologies. At the theoretical front, there is an article that takes issue with the frequently mentioned claim that mobile information technology unilaterally benefits dissident groups by giving them greater organizational capacity. Social media in politics. The social media must be used by parliaments, parliamentarians, governments and political parties as they are highly effective tools to involve and inform citizens in public policymaking and in the formation of governments. But all these groups must develop strategies to deal with a wide array of both positive and negative effects of these rapidly growing media, argued participants in the final plenary session. Political power of social media, the good and the bad. The bad always deliver the bad news first, with updates as instantaneous as they are on Twitter. Accidents happen. You might mistake your tweet bar for your search bar. You might hit enter too soon. You might have a battle with autocorrect, hilarious, but embarrassing. Even if you're the well-versed in Twitter technology, you can't ward against accidents. The good politicians are essentially brands in and of themselves. Instead of a good or service, however, their product is the service of leadership and their work is representing the common people to the government. As such, they stand to lose as much as a brand, but they also stand to gain the same amount. How social media affects politics. The political landscape has changed quite a bit in the last couple of decades. The Internet has played a large role in this transformation. Social media, in particular, is now a serious factor in political campaigns and in the way people think about issues. Candidates and their supporters constantly post their views on Facebook and Twitter. Each party has its own pages, from which it broadcasts propaganda and requests for donations. Let's look at some of the leading ways that social media influences politics today. Direct interaction with politicians. Demographics and targeting. Targeting is used throughout the advertising industry to make sure that ads and messages reach the right audience. The power of confirmation bias. One of the hidden forces that operates on social media is confirmation bias. This is especially powerful when it comes to controversial topics, including politics. Rumors, fake news and conspiracies. Political campaigns are now influenced by every story, whether true or not, that gets spread around social media. Social media and the future of politics. Because social media is relatively new, we are just starting to see its impact on society. There are sure to be many political changes that come about due to social media. Pros and cons of technology. There is no denying that we live in the age of technology. It is an essential part of everyday life and is constantly improving to do more and more impressive things. Along with the shift in technology, a shift in society and the way that we think and operate is also coming along as a consequence to the technological advances. The pros of technology. Improves efficiency for business. More job opportunities. Better communication. Incredible medical care. The cons of technology. A social divide. A generation of laziness. Quickly becomes obsolete. Important facts about technology. Over 90% of all adults have their mobile phone within arm's reach of them at all times. Out of the population of 7 billion people on the entire world, 4 billion of them have mobile phones. The very first personal computer was released in 1950 and sold for $300. If you can successfully hack into Facebook, they will pay you $500. Over 1 million new domain names are registered every single month. Google search engines answer over 1 billion searches every single day. The first computer mouse was invented in 1963 and was made of a wooden shell with 2 metal wheels. Cons and risks of technology. Technology is altering our lifestyle and will alter the cognitive and social development of current and future generations. Human cloning technology is a reality, and in addition to some obvious advantages, human cloning brings some risks. Weaponization of viruses. For instance, viruses such as Ebola or AIDS could be transformed into a virus that could be transmitted through the air. Similarly, scientific experimentation might create enormous dangers for society. Risky experiments may go wrong. Cons and risks of technology. Enrichment of uranium is becoming an increasingly cheaper process. Traditionally, the infrastructure required to produce nuclear power and build nuclear bombs was extremely expensive. Technological progress is to be blamed for the negative effects of global warming and climate change. Technology can be also used as an undesirable tool of control. For instance, scientists are working to develop brain scanning machines which could allow read a person's thoughts. Pros and cons of economic, social and political globalization. Is globalization overall positive for our societies? Globalization is a process of growing exchange, interaction and integration between people, governments and private organizations across the globe. International trade, capital flows, migration, technological transfer and cultural exchanges are some of the typical manifestations of this process. Globalization pros and cons. Globalization is such a complex phenomenon that here we are going to dissect its pros and cons across 3 different dimensions or angles: economic, cultural and political. Economic globalization. Economic globalization echoes the views of neoliberal and neoclassicist thinkers, in which states lose prominence and the world becomes a single global market of individual consumers. Pros of economic globalization: cheaper prices for products and services, more optimized supply chains, better availability of products and services. Easier access to capital and commodities. Increased competition. Producers and retailers can diversify their markets and contribute to economic growth. Cons of economic globalization. Some countries struggle to compete. Extractive behavior of some foreign companies and investors in resource-rich countries preventing economic diversification. Strong bargaining power of multinational companies vis-a-vis local governments. Contagion effect is more likely in times of crises. Problems of social dumping. Cultural globalization. Cultural globalization. It refers to the process of transmission of values, ideas, cultural and artistic expressions. In the era of the Internet and fast communications, people can interact more easily with each other. Multiculturalism and cosmopolitanism are to some extent manifestations of cultural globalization. Pros of cultural globalization: access to new cultural products, art, entertainment, education. Better understanding of foreign values and attitudes. Less stereotyping and fewer misconceptions about other people and cultures. Instant access to information from anywhere in the world. Capacity to communicate and defend one's values and ideals globally. Customization or adaptation of global cultural trends to local environment. Cons of cultural globalization: spread of commodity-based consumer culture. Dangers of cultural homogenization, westernization, cultural imperialism or cultural colonialism. Some small cultures may lose their distinct features. Dangerous or violent ideals can also spread faster. Note the international character of the terror group is. Political globalization. The political dimension is a newer feature of the globalization debate, as over the last 30 years there has been a rise in the influence and power of international and regional institutions such as the European Union (EU), Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD), the United Nations (UN), the World Trade Organization (WTO), Mercosur in South America, and the Association for Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN). These international and supranational actors increasingly shape domestic politics. Pros of political globalization: access to international aid and financial support. It contributes to world peace. It reduces risk of invasions, more checks on big powers and limitation on nationalism. International organizations are often committed to spread values like freedom and to fight abuses within countries. Smaller countries can work together and gain more influence internationally. Governments can learn from each other. Cons of political globalization. State sovereignty is reduced. The functioning of international and supranational organizations is often not democratic in terms of representation and accountability. Big countries can shape decisions in supranational organizations. Sometimes countries can veto decisions and slow down decision-making processes. Coordination is difficult and expensive. Positive effects of technology on education. Research. Globalization. Educational gains. Distance education. Web seminars. Essential concepts. Science and technology is essential if an economy or nation is to provide for the health, prosperity and security of its citizens. Social media enables peer-to-peer dialogue, public discourse and political messaging to reach more potential voters during campaigns. Technology has given political candidates a platform to speak to constituents openly through Twitter and Facebook without any editing from campaign managers. Science and technology are key drivers to development, because technological and scientific revolutions underpin economic advances, improvements in health systems, education and infrastructure. Knowledge is the systemically integrated information that allows a citizen, a worker, a manager, or a finance minister to act purposefully and intelligently in a complex and demanding world. The benefits that are certain to flow from technological revolution in an increasingly connected world and knowledge-intensive world will be seized by those countries and companies that are alive to the rapidly changing environment, and nimble enough to take advantage of the opportunities. Politics is concerned with the day-to-day actual activities of the government. Political science seeks to study the origin, nature, and functions of the state, government and its all organs. Politics or political science means the study of all political relations and interactions. Political relations and interactions are those which are involved in the exercise of power in society. The reality of international affairs has rapidly grown in complexity, pressuring the discipline of international relations (IR) to engage with new phenomena. The mobilization of the public through the web has managed to overcome the anti-democratic impact of money in our electoral system. Science, politics, and technology have a complex relationship that is exacerbated by the relationship between politicians and the people they represent. Global warming refers to the gradual increase in the world's temperatures and its potential consequences such as drought, rising sea levels, and displaced populations. Science, technology and international affairs influence one another. The impacts of science and technology on international affairs, particularly those of communication and information technologies, are especially penetrating. The relationship between international relations and science and technology is not only a result of recent advances in science and technology, though the breadth of interaction and the rapidity of change are relatively modern characteristics. Technologically advanced industrialized nations accumulated and exercised their vast economic and military powers in order to establish their supremacy over less advanced parts of the world, in effect creating a hierarchy among nations. Modern communication technology is emerging rapidly, with tremendous social implications. The key innovations introduced by this technology include the increased pervasiveness and the rich nature of digitally transmitted information, and a new type of network structure over which it is disseminated. Information flows in digital networks, however, may also provide new opportunities for intelligence gathering. The social media must be used by parliaments, parliamentarians, governments and political parties, as they are highly effective tools to involve and inform citizens in public policymaking and in the formation of governments. The political landscape has changed quite a bit in the last couple of decades. The Internet has played a large role in this transformation. Social media makes this distinction especially confusing. The constant stream of memes, links and rumors about political leaders and candidates is a mixture of truth, lies, satire and speculation.